right, we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Tartan Talks, Monmouth College's alumni webinar series. My name is Jordan Sherpy-Lencioni, and I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement. And I'm glad to have everybody joining us today from all over the country. A few logistical notes before we get started today. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on our website later this week. We also will be allowing attendees to join us on screen after the presentation to ask any questions of Bob. If you'd like for us to enable your video function, you may do so at the end of the presentation. If you're not comfortable being on screen, feel free to just put your question in the chat and then we'll read it aloud to the group. Now I'd like to introduce our speaker. Robert Riley, class of 1970, is chairman of the board for Feed Energy Co., which delivers naturally derived antibiotic-free livestock feed supplements to the agricultural industry. He's also the co-founder of FEC Solutions and the founder and CEO of Riverhead Resources. In 2019, Bob was also the recipient of the Monmouth College Distinguished Alumnus Award at our homecoming celebration. Today, Bob will be discussing the evolution of photosynthesis, which eventually has led to the buildup of waste product oxygen in the atmosphere. Bob, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Jordan. Let me start out by saying the title might be a little bit misleading, but or the introduction might be, because I'm going to be talking mostly about agriculture and how it can save the planet, as you can see by the first slide. As you might remember 50 years ago from your freshman biology class, ATP is one of the most important compounds inside a cell because it is the energy transport molecule. And the lower energy ADP is then re-energized during photosynthesis as the phosphate group is reattached. So I'm kind of punking you a little bit here. Before you get all googly-eyed and try to remember 50 years ago to your biology class, I just want to let you know I won't be talking much about this photosynthetic miracle today. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. As you can tell by the verbiage on the slide, I've been a beekeeper, a bee haver, a bee giver, and a bee mentor. I've had all stages of bee life in my life. Everything I learned about everything, of course, aside from what I learned as a philosophy major at Monmouth, I learned from a bee. So one of the things that we talk about in the bee world is how unified and how orderly all that is. And there's a question about why these bees do what they want to do. And do what they've done for millions and millions of years. And primarily it's the same values that you and I might have. It's the concept of impact, where they're making honey all the time. It's the concept of curiosity, where they're looking for sources of food all the time. It's a concept of waste not, want not, which is one of my motto. And of course, the relationships, the teamwork that is being done within the hive, and then adaptability. And these are all things that bees do. So I learned about the value of the individual and the power of the whole a long time ago. And that got me into systems thinking. And that's kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing today. One of the questions that people ask me in my life is why I ended up getting into agriculture. Primarily, I guess, because I was a philosophy major and they wonder, well, you know, what does that have to do with anything? So I go back to some of the things that I learned in school, and, you know, agriculture obviously satisfies the basic needs of life. The Maslow triangle doesn't work very well without food. And food doesn't work very well without these three essential items, these three simple ingredients, which is solar energy, rain, and soil. It makes the grass, the forest, the sea algae all happen through photosynthesis. And you get back down into the conversion of plant matter into food, and you get probably 15 or 20,000 years ago, wondering who was the first person that said, hey, let's eat that thing that comes out of the bird, or let's eat some worms, or my favorite, of course, let's barbecue. So what I really do every day is provoke agricultural leaders in all the trade groups that I am involved with, in all the organizations that I deal with, across the spectrum of both agriculture and community leadership type things and other nonprofits. My role really has been as a disruptor. And so provoking ag leaders is what I do every day, trying to get them to a place where they can see that the magic happens there. So a little bit about my company. Riley Resource Group is a collection of related companies who serve the ag industry. These are family businesses, and they're all connected. And we have, a set of family values and various things that we do to make sure that they're operating on the right front. We're all in the thermonuclear energy business, whether we like it or not, because that's what builds all the things that we have grown accustomed to in our lives. This photosynthesis is the key to whatever's going on this planet. And the question that I've always posed to everybody who's in the farm business, in the ag business, that harvesting the sun's energy through vegetative growth is our real calling. And how can we improve on that? And so when you look at ag in general, you can see that it is a series of linked resources and systems. And again, back to my systems background that I learned at Monmouth in philosophy, and that I polished over the years, I see all these things as connected. So, for instance, obviously with agriculture, you have to start with clean, slow water as rainfall, and then you have to apply that to soil that you hope stays in place, and that produces this healthy plant system that we've got. And then, of course, with the photosynthetic cycle and the recycling of carbon dioxide, it gives us healthy air. And all that adds up through to make healthy people with, the ability to have outdoor recreation and parks and trails and all the things that go on there to keep people healthy. And then you have a healthy and happy community. But all these are linked. This is my agriculture from A to G cartoon, and they are all inextricably linked. When one part is ignored, the system teeters, wobbles, collapses, and breaks. And if you think about it, society has a vested interest in keeping this whole system together, because society will not allow the agricultural community to let this thing collapse. As we saw before, this is a whole bunch of links in a chain. And if we have problems with that, society will come to this small minority of people that are farmers. I think there's 84,000 farmers in Iowa, and they will redo their social license and make them do what needs to happen in order for society to survive. So regulation might follow. If we don't do the right things in the agricultural community today, society will make sure we do sometime tomorrow. So you can see that despite all our accomplishments, we owe our existence to a 6-inch layer of topsoil and the fact that it rains. And if you think about that and apply it to our system today, with the photosynthesis that we're talking about, you can see that all kinds of magical things happen because of this system that we're in. The coincidence of 300 million years of activity has produced the most biologically productive, photosynthetically active location in the world, more than just the Amazon. So you can see that we have this machine going on that takes this sunlight in and converts it to biomass, and it's used to help feed the world, whether through animals and then to people, or directly using it as vegetable and energy sources that we use today. So it's a pretty amazing system, and I'm always just astounded at the complexity of it and the fact that it works so well. It's had here 300 million years to do a lot of things, but if you think back to the beginning of the world 4.5 billion years ago, there's been a lot of trial and error, and they've gone through a lot of different things in this system, and they've ironed out a whole lot of the problems. And so we would be wise to look at some of these solutions that have come through nature and try to use biomimicry to pattern our behavior after what goes on there. But I digress. The Mesopotamia of modern agriculture is here in the Midwest, and it is a complex system. And people have to understand that the cause and effect are sometimes distant in time and space. And here's this little cartoon of a guy saying, oh, what does it make any difference if I push down this block? And you see that eventually that's going to come back and bite them. And so many times the people can't see the unintended forces behind them. So I'd like to say that at this point in time, we have to radio in and say, Houston, we have a problem. Because the strength of the total agricultural system from crops through feed to animal is tied to the soil. And here's the bumper sticker from Iowa State, which says, actually, it is rocket science. I have a good friend at Iowa State, Jerry Hadfield, who's head of the soil tilth laboratory up there, and he said, getting a man on the moon is simple compared to agronomy. So you have to look at this whole system as a series of links in a chain as to whether or not there's a weak link. If any of them are weak, it threatens the whole system, as we all know. So this is a depiction of the 9 boundaries. I don't know how many people are familiar with this. We talk a lot about the climate change, which is in the middle up here in the center. And you can see that it's got some concerns, but it's not anywhere near the concerns that we have about genetic diversity, which have surpassed the boundaries that we have available to them. If you look at phosphorus and nitrogen and the biogeochemical flows down here in the left-hand bottom, you can see that they're exceeding the limits that we have out there. And, you know, the implications of these boundaries is this: they are lines we cannot cross without dire consequences. And if we don't understand that, then we really don't understand, you know, the second law of thermodynamics, or, you know, the reality of this orb that we live on. It's a closed system. There might be a lot of opportunities within the system that we take advantage of, but it's a closed system. We cannot make Earth bigger, and we cannot add various components that we rely on. So we have to do various things that preserve them. And people, I think, are slow to the game, but we're starting to get there. This is a cartoon of the multiple impacts of global warming. And that's just one of the boundaries that seems to be in the news today. And look at some of these consequences. I mean, you've got various things going on here, human health, desertification and land degradation. You've got altered precipitation. We've all seen the floods and the droughts that have gone through. We all got a chance to look at a derecho that we'd never even heard of before that happened this year. We've had more hurricanes than ever before. We have stratospheric ozone depletion. So we've got a lot of strange things that are happening in here that are the impacts of climate change. And that has and will have a phenomenal effect on agriculture. But we also have to remember this. One of the many things that not too many people are willing to talk about is the population growth, adding another couple of billion people to an already overcrowded world. The pandemic can only take care of so many. I hate to bring that up. But when will we address this problem? As you can see here, the maximum number of individuals of a given species that can be supported on a sustainable basis is the definition of carrying capacity. We're really going full blast to try to figure out how to test the limits of that. And I think that's not a very wise thing to do. You know, I'm a very conservative person, and my sense is let's not dance out there on the edge so much because we might fall off. So I want to make sure that we don't do crazy things in the meantime. So in the meantime, the planet is melting before our eyes. So what does this have to do with agriculture? Well, agricultural people are problem solvers. Turn them loose on a problem and you'll likely get a solution. It might not be the most elegant, using duct tape and baling wire, but farmers will really get her done. So when you think of the challenge that we have in the 21st century ag economy, that is that we have to build it from the bottom up. We spent the last 100 years or so depleting our soil and messing around with our water and our whole ecosystem and all the species that hang around in there. And so I've got a little formula here that says this is what we need to do to rebuild the 21st century ag economy. So it's that restored and regenerated soil and healthy water, the soil that stays in place and cleans our water and preserves our ag heritage, obviously guaranteeing our freedom, our future for, succeeding generations. Then regenerative agriculture needs to be installed in our system. Diversified income streams, building soil and resilience. And then coming from all this is a robust renewable energy system, optimizing the harvest of photosynthesis and biomass. And when you think about it, that's all oil is 300 million year old sun. So we're doing it on a yearly basis here, making that renewable. And that's what we're all about, is not dipping into the reserves that we have in the ground and trying to instead use renewable energy. And then, of course, all this will result in a resilient rural economy, which will add wealth creation to the system. These are, built on innovation pathways, connectivity, and expanded services. These are key components that are necessary to keep the ag system from going into a complete tailspin and ending up looking like Oklahoma in 1933. So farming will change. We will be supplying ecological services in a carbon neutral world, and agriculturalists will be having a big impact on the planet because of this. We will either have self or legislative based regulation of practices for the common good, and that will be rewarded. There will be income streams that come back to agriculture because of that. And the improved air quality will happen because of the advanced photosynthetic super development of a few plant types, and that will manage the water flow and the velocity. And all that will be eco services that we pay people for. If we can fix that rubisco gene that regulates the amount of carbon dioxide a plant can uptake and turn it into carbon and oxygen, we can accelerate carbon capture by plants to compensate for the 400 parts per million that's in the atmosphere today. So the feed, food, animals, fiber, and fuel will be the byproducts of this regenerative, sustainable, ecosystem-based agricultural system. So we just have to give it all we've got, and then we'll be there. But, newsflash, Aggies love progress and hate change. This is a real issue because farmers have a little cognitive dissonance going on. I hate socialists, but don't stand in the way between me and my mailbox where I get my federal money check. They think one way and they act another. We've got to change this dynamic so that we are all in this together instead of the loving progress and hating change, instead of socializing risk and privatizing profit. We have to make this system work better together. So the future above ground animal agriculture depends on all of our underground livestock. In all the speaking things that I do, I talk about tripling the amount of livestock in our grain producing states in the first foot of soil. Because a lot of people think we have too many hogs and too many chickens and too many turkeys and too many cattle. But my sense is we're just not utilizing those resources well enough. We have to pour that into the first foot of soil, and we have to get those billions of bacteria and various critters that are populating that first foot of soil. We have to get them back healthy again. And you can see here that if we can get more of the soil aggregate doing the right thing and we get more worms in the soil, everything is going to be better. So when we look at the whole the worldwide economic model and the national accounting for this, it's been screwed up from the very get-go. We've used the resource extraction as part of the economy and basically said, we want to make as much money as we possibly can by extracting as many resources as we possibly can, which goes to then profits and waste. But I would say that we really need to look at it as the ecosystem is the holding vessel for everything that we've got, and the economic system is a subset of that it's within the ecosystem, so that we then have resources that we pour into this economy, and then out of that comes waste and or profit. And if you take it a little bit further and make it into a regenerative system, reduce, reuse, recycle, regenerate, it takes sustainability to the next level, utilizing the Earth's capacity to rebuild resources to a level better than when we began. But this is a model that is essential for the survival of the planet. We have pushed the boundaries of our planetary system, and we're fooling ourselves. We're like the ant and the grasshopper. We have to put material back into our soil, back into our ecosystem in order to make that work. Because otherwise we will just extract and extract and extract, and we'll end up with nothing. So agriculture is not a place where hope goes to die. Ag is a place where dreams go to thrive. And Iowa is not a place where hope goes to die. That's why I'm here. We are the epicenter of 21st century modern agriculture. So we need to put order back into the system in order for us to have some certainty about the future. We need to have some belief in an internal locus of control. And that way we'll get the calmness that's necessary because we have a strategy that's going forward that will make sense. The children will prosper. We'll have enough money. Things will unfold in due time, and confidence in society will happen. We'll be courageous. We'll be brave. We'll be self-confident and resilient. We'll have a self-sufficiency and the strength that attracts other things to happen. Success brings camaraderie and trust, and we'll have that virtuous cycle of community building. So just think of the way our system works today. And if you think the economy is more important than the environment, try holding your breath while counting your money. So To finish up, the keys to the future of agriculture are fourfold. They're conservative, they're regenerative, they're biorenewable, and they're sustainable. If we keep those four things in mind and apply them to many other areas in our life besides agriculture, we will be so much further off or better off that I think things will start heading in the right direction. So with that, the real question is, what do you think?
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to promote everybody so that they are now able to show their video if they would like to ask questions to Bob. So just bear with me for one moment while I go through our attendee list. If you're not comfortable showing your video or speaking on camera, that's fine. Go ahead and just enter any questions you might have for Bob into the chat, and we'll make sure to get all of those answered as well. I think I have just a few more. All right. Are there any questions for Bob?
Yeah, hi, I'm Jenny. And I was wondering, Bob, in your models, if you could talk about not us versus them, but the small farmer in the ag, in your models.
That's a good question. That's a great question. I've been involved with various initiatives around trying to really promote the concept of organic farming and the small farmer system to see if we could end up with a sustainable system built on that front. With the number of people that we have in the world today and in the country today, if we had the system set up right, we could probably make that work. But when you look at the large metropolitan areas, Chicago, New York, the Houstons of the world, they need to import their food. There's just no way that they can have a small coterie of organic farms kind of surrounding their cities and allow that to supply them, because there just won't be enough because of the imbalance in the distribution of people throughout the world and the country. So, you look at Phoenix, it's surrounded by desert. What are you going to grow down there that feeds, a few million people? So I think there's going to be a both and situation going on, a polarity that needs to be managed between organic type agriculture and, I'll call it industrialized agriculture. And I don't mean that in a negative sense per se. Industrialized just means it's got a form of management and construction that makes it more methodical and tries to take the variability out of the situation. But I think, for instance, we could have, and I have examples here in Iowa, of places where there are, let's say, 3 million laying hens in one spot, and they have no odor. They run their manure through a digester, and they capture the gas and inject it into water that makes a high ammonia water that they put on the soil as irrigation. All their litter is taken care of. And so there are many ways that you can have a sustainable system that's larger without having to necessarily go to the smaller distributed organic. But again, there's room for both. And we need to make sure that we have adequate food for everybody in society, and not just the people that can afford to pay $6 a dozen for eggs that are organically grown and are omega-3 and omega-6 and antibiotic-free. All these things that you see in the egg aisle of the store, but Instead, we have to make sure that other people can afford it. If we've done a lot of studies that show when people are, when those eggs that are on the shelf that are fancy all the way over to commercially grown, eggs, people will choose the fancy eggs until they are priced. And when they are priced, about 90% of the people shift all the way over to the commercial eggs and buy them because they cannot afford all these other things. In all the discussions that we've had about organic, my main concern is I don't want to have a two-class society that says if you can afford organic, you can buy it, and if you can't afford organic, then you're relegated to, the other stuff. If we can bring the quality of the other stuff up and continue to expand on the organic, we might end up with a system that works for everybody.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Bob? Please feel free to just jump on in.
Hey, Bob, it's Monica Stone. How are you?
Good, Monica. How are you? Long time no see.
Yeah, absolutely. So your slide about feedback loops made me laugh. I'm gonna copy that cartoon because I think it's a great one. But so in the ag world, how do we shorten those feedback loops so that farmers feel more confident in making really good decisions that benefit the community and benefit themselves?
That's the $64 billion question.
Yep.
Trying to figure out how to both send market signals back to a farmer that tells them what to do, and then having that farmer react and involve that in their planning program. And then you have to wait a year before that comes to fruition. And then you turn around and find out you were over or under your guess on where you needed to be is a very difficult thing. And one of the concerns that I've had for a long time is that the farmer really, the farm programs, the multinational farm, agricultural businesses, big ag, they're all basically built around the concept of just make more and more stuff and sell it for less and less, and then go on a business so that the rest of us can get bigger. And that's been part of the issue that I think has been laid upon agriculture in general, and especially small farmers who have absolutely no control over these types of things. And so that's the advent, I think, of the ecological services market, which would allow the farmer to have his hands on the lever of, or on the faucets, if you will, of their income. And they can contract with someone and say, I will put more carbon in the soil, I will protect more water, I will put more cover crops on, I will do this or that, and provide these ecological services. And they can then have some control over their income instead of being subject to the vagaries of the marketplace, where everything is priced on the margin anyway. You increase, the amount of corn by 100,000 bushels, and the price drops 20 cents for 12 billion bushels, which doesn't make any sense. But that's what happened. I don't know if I got into your question or not, but I tried.
But I think we both know that that's the big thing. What do you think about the idea of shaving off healthcare or sick care the way we do in the world dollars and transferring them into ag so that we can keep people healthy, but also do what you suggested, which is get farmers the resources to decide how they're going to make their money?
Well, I'm not sure about how you balance grabbing money from here and putting it there. I'm not quite sure I understand how you would, in essence, throw one sector healthcare or sick care under the bus so that you could give more money to farmers. But regardless, what we have done in all the hunger things that I'm involved with is talk about the health of the food that we eat, which has been compromised, and the programs that we have set out to help hungry people has been compromised. So we now have, for instance, the Des Moines Area Religious Council, DMARC, has a food pantry, and they have what they call double up food bucks. And if you buy vegetables and fruits and other high value, high nutrition products, you get to have double your benefit from the funding system and how they get that into hungry people's hands. And so instead of going down to the local, fast food market or the Quick Trip at the corner and getting a bag of Doritos, we're promoting people to eat more healthy. So translate that back to the farm community, and we have basically poisoned our soil. We've killed all the bugs in it. We've tried to figure out how to make sure it was not good for anything but raising corn and beans. And we put those inputs in side by side just for them. But we're not feeding the bugs in the soil. We have basically dirt out there. And if you look at Montgomery's book, have to do with dirt, you'll see that this is a 500-year, 1,000-year progression of starving the soil. So that's where this regenerative agriculture comes in, making the soil more healthy, which will then make the products that come from the soil more healthy, which will then make the people that eat those products more healthy. And I think that's going to be the solution for how to get this in a different pathway.
Fantastic. Bob, I asked you this question earlier before we had all the attendees join, but I've gotten a few questions in the chat. Everyone wants to know about your Bob Riley for Governor sign in the background. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, that's Bob Riley from Alabama, ran for governor and was elected. And so my son-in-law, who is a political consultant, got me the sign, and I just have it stuck over on the wall there somewhere. And I have fun with it every once in a while. I am not running. I will never run. If nominated, I will not run. If elected, I will not serve.
Love it. Any other questions for Bob? All right, well, I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. And then also thank you, Bob, for taking time to put together this presentation for us all. There will be a short pop-up survey that will appear in your screen once we end today's webinar. Please share with us your future ideas for Tartan Talks and also other virtual engagement events that the college puts on every month. Our next event is going to be Sippin' with the Scotts. It's going to be on November 18th. And it's with local Monmouth entrepreneur Sarah Walters and Monmouth College faculty member Dr. Craig Vivian. He's led a couple of different events for us, the beekeeping event, and then also he did a Scotch tasting with us as well. If there's no other questions, then I just want to say everybody stay healthy and go Scots.
All right.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for coming. See ya.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vicki.